I need you to think about a character you loved. Not liked, loved. The kind of character you quoted. The kind you looked up as a kid and thought, yeah, that's who I want to be. Now imagine watching a sequel slowly strip everything that made them that person, scene by scene, choice by choice, until by the end of the film, you're sitting there thinking, who even is this? That's character assassination. And DC animated films, they have committed some of the worst offenses in the history of animation. Now before we get into it, I'm not here to just dunk on these films. I actually love DC animation. The DCU AOM era built something special. Andrea Romano, Bruce Timm, the entire voice cast, they gave us some of the greatest animated storytelling ever put to screen, which is exactly why it hurts so much when they get it wrong, because the betrayal only lands when you cared in the first place. So today we're ranking the worst character assassinations in DC animated film history, and I promise you, by the time we get to number 1, you're going to feel it. Let's go. We're running 4 tiers today. Mild. The character takes a hit but recovers. Moderate. The damage is real and it lingers. Severe. They rewrote who this person was. Catastrophic. The character never came back from this. The Death of Superman, 2018, and Reign of the Supermen, 2019. We start mild, and Superman in this 2-part adaptation is the right place to begin, because the assassination here is subtle. So subtle, you might not even catch it on first watch. In the comics, when Doomsday comes, Superman doesn't just fight, he endures. He absorbs hit after hit, because that's what Superman does. He is the last line. He takes the punishment so nobody else has to. That sacrifice is the entire point of the story, and the 2018 film gets the spectacle right. The fight is brutal, it's earned. His death lands. But then, Reign of the Supermen happens. And here's the problem. When the replacement Supermen show up, when the Eradicator and Superboy and Steel and the cyborg Superman divide the world between them, the film treats this as a Superman story. But Clark barely registers in his own resurrection arc. He's passive, he's reactive. He spends the film catching up to his own legacy instead of defining it. The real Superman doesn't scramble to reclaim himself. He is himself, always, even without the cape. The film recovers by the end. He makes the right call. The sacrifice in the final act echoes the first one. That's why this stays mild. One film stumbles, the other catches it. But that middle stretch, where Superman felt like a supporting character in his own story, that's a real wound. But if Superman being passive feels painful, wait until you see what they did to a character who was never supposed to be passive a day in his life. Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, Emerald Knights, 2011. Now we move to moderate, and I want to talk about Hal Jordan and Emerald Knights because this one is sneaky. Emerald Knights is an anthology film. Multiple stories, multiple lanterns, all designed to introduce us to the wider Green Lantern universe before the live-action film dropped. And on paper, that's a great idea. The problem is what it does to Hal Jordan in the process. Hal Jordan's entire character is built on fearlessness. Not the absence of fear, because that's a misreading, but the choice to act despite it. He's reckless, he's arrogant sometimes. He's the guy who would charge a parallax-level threat with nothing but willpower and a ring he learned to use last Tuesday. That's Hal. That is his entire soul. In Emerald Knights, Hal spends most of the film as a narrator and a frame device. He introduces other Lantern stories. He reacts to things. He's the host at a dinner party where everyone else is more interesting than him. By the time the film ends, I genuinely forgot what Hal Jordan wanted, what he feared, what he was choosing to be in spite of that fear. They turned the most willful character in DC into a tour guide. Now, why does this stay moderate and not go higher? Because the film isn't really about Hal. The anthology format has a built-in excuse, and his moments, when they come, are solid. But here's the thing. When you put a character's name in the title, they deserve to be the heartbeat of the film, not the interlude between the interesting parts. Hal Jordan deserved better than a hosting gig. Hal was forgotten by his own film, but the next entry, the character wasn't forgotten, he was actively rewritten. Batman: The Killing Joke, 2016. Now we enter severe territory, and I know exactly what you're thinking. You already know what I'm about to say. Batman: The Killing Joke. First, let's be clear about what the source material is. Alan Moore's original graphic novel is one of the most important Batman stories ever written. Its central argument is this: one bad day is all it takes to break a person. The Joker believes this. Batman refuses to accept it. And that disagreement, that philosophical standoff, is the entire engine of the story. The animated film had one job: honor that argument. It didn't. Instead, the film adds a 28-minute prologue centered on Barbara Gordon that turns her into a romantic subplot for Bruce Wayne. And I don't say this lightly. That prologue actively makes Batman worse. It makes him selfish. It makes his refusal to work with Barbara about his feelings rather than her protection. And then when the actual Killing Joke story begins, the damage is already done. Because now we're watching a Batman who compromised his own code for a personal entanglement, and the film doesn't even acknowledge that as a contradiction. The real Batman doesn't blur those lines. Not because he's emotionally unavailable, but because he understands exactly what happens when the people he's supposed to protect become the people he's fighting for instead of alongside. That distinction matters. The Joker's argument in the original story is that Batman is one bad day away from becoming him. The film accidentally proves the Joker right for all the wrong reasons, and Kevin Conroy deserved better than this script. Full stop. Batman was made to look compromised, but the next entry, a villain was made to look like a sidekick. Teen Titans: The Judas Contract, 2017. Still in severe, and this one is personal to me because Deathstroke is one of the greatest villains DC has ever produced, and the Judas Contract is supposed to be his story. In the comics, Slade Wilson is terrifying not because he's strong, though he is, but because he is the smartest man in any room he walks into. He doesn't just fight the Titans, he studies them. He thinks 3 moves ahead of everyone. His manipulation of Tara isn't just cruel, it's surgical. He identified a broken girl, cultivated her trust over months, and turned her into a weapon so precisely that by the time the Titans realized what happened, it was already over. That is Deathstroke. Cold, precise, methodical. A villain who makes you feel genuinely outmatched. The 2017 animated film has Deathstroke, but it doesn't have that Deathstroke. Instead, we get a version of Slade who feels reactive. He responds to situations rather than engineering them. The manipulation of Tara is rushed. We don't feel the slow poisoning of her trust. We just arrive at the betrayal. And because we didn't feel the build, the payoff doesn't land with the weight it should. Worse, the film buries him under Father Trigon as the real final threat, which means Deathstroke doesn't even get to be the main villain in the story that is literally named after his plan. The Judas Contract should have made Deathstroke the scariest villain in DC animated history. Instead, he becomes a mid-boss, a character defined by patience and precision, made to feel like an afterthought. Deathstroke was demoted, but the final entry on this list, that character wasn't demoted, he was made human, and that is so much worse. The Joker. Batman: The Long Halloween Parts 1 and 2, 2021. And now we reach Catastrophic. And I want to be careful here because The Long Halloween is a genuinely great animated film. Parts 1 and 2 are some of the best work DC animation has produced in the modern era. But the Joker in this film. In Jeff Loeb's original Long Halloween graphic novel, the Joker appears in one arc. It's a contained, precise deployment of the character. He shows up, he detonates chaos, he leaves. And it works because the Joker doesn't need to be everywhere to feel omnipresent. The animated film keeps that structure, but then it does something that quietly unravels everything. It makes the Joker comprehensible. His motivations become slightly too legible. His humor becomes slightly too performed. There are moments, and I want you to listen carefully because this is the thing that separates a real Joker from an imitation. There are moments where you can see why he's doing what he's doing, and the moment you can explain the Joker, he stops being the Joker. The Joker's entire power comes from the fact that he operates outside of cause and effect. He doesn't want money. He doesn't want power. He doesn't even really want Batman dead. He wants the chaos that comes from a world without rules. That is an idea, not a motivation. And ideas are terrifying in a way that motivations are not. The Long Halloween's Joker has a motivation, and it costs him everything. This is catastrophic not because the film is bad, it isn't, but because the Joker is the one character in DC DC animation who cannot afford to be misunderstood. Every other character can survive a misreading. The Joker cannot, because the misreading is the assassination. He is DC animation's most irreplaceable character, and they made him make sense. That is unforgivable. So there it is. From Superman losing himself in his own resurrection story, to Hal Jordan becoming a tour guide, to Batman compromising his code, to Deathstroke being demoted to a mid-boss, to the Joker being made legible. DC animation has given us some of the greatest character work in the history of the medium. Andrea Romano's casting alone built an entire generation of fans, and when these films get it right, when they really get it right, there is nothing better. But the Assassinations hit harder because of exactly that. You can't betray someone you never loved. Now I want to hear from you. Which DC animated film broke your heart? Which character did they get so wrong you still feel it? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. I'll see you there.